Hi, my name's Emily McKee. In this video, I'm going to talk about algae biofuel, a next-generation renewable fuel made from microscopic algae. I'll explain where algae biofuel comes from, how it's produced, the technology's current status, and the main advantages and disadvantages. By the end, you'll have a clear picture of why algae biofuel is considered such a promising clean energy option. Algae biofuel comes from microalgae, which are tiny photosynthetic organisms found in freshwater and saltwater. Like plants, algae uses photosynthesis. Excuse me. Like plants, algae uses photosynthesis to convert sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water into biomass. Some algae strains contain very high amounts of natural oils, sometimes up to 50% of their mass, which makes them a great potential source for biofuel. These algae can be grown in large open ponds or in closed photobioreactors. To grow algae for fuel, producers typically use two systems. The first is open raceway ponds, which are shallow ponds mixed with a paddle wheel. They're inexpensive to build, but can be affected by temperature changes and contamination. The second system is closed photobioreactors, which are sealed tubes or flat panels. These offer more control and higher productivity, but cost more to operate. Both systems rely on sunlight and CO2, and some facilities even pump in industrial CO2 to help the algae grow faster. Once the algae are grown, the biomass is harvested and processed into fuel. This can happen in several ways. The first method is lipid extraction, where oils are extracted from the algae cells and converted into biodiesel through a chemical reaction called transesterification. Another method is fermentation, where the carbohydrates in certain algae species are fermented by microbes to make ethanol. The third method is hydrothermal liquefaction, which uses heat and pressure to turn whole algae biomass into an oil that can be refined into jet fuel or diesel. All of these processes rely on biological reactions, especially photosynthesis and sometimes fermentation, to turn algae biomass into usable fuel. Algae biofuel is currently in the development and demonstration stage. S- Several companies, including Sapphire Energy and Algenol, have operated pilot plants. Some airlines have even tested algae-based jet fuel blends. However, algae fuel is still not widely available because production costs are much higher than fossil fuels, and large-scale cultivation remains challenging. There are some important advantages to algae biofuel. Like algae can grow extremely fast and it can produce more fuel per acre than most crops. And with that, it can be grown in saltwater or wastewater, so it doesn't compete with farmland. They absorb CO2 during photosynthesis, which reduces the net greenhouse gas emissions, and they can be turned into many different fuels, including biodiesel and jet fuel. But algae biofuel also has several cons. It's still expensive to produce compared to petroleum, and harvesting and drying algae requires a lot of energy. Large-scale systems can be difficult to maintain and prone to contamination, and competing with cheap fossil fuels makes commercialization harder. In terms of carbon footprint, algae biofuels can be close to carbon neutral. The CO2 released when the fuel is burned is roughly equal to the CO2 that algae absorbed while growing. If renewable electricity is used for pumping and processing, the total emissions can be even lower. Some facilities also use industrial CO2 as a feed source, which helps recycle emissions. Economically, algae biofuel has the potential to support new jobs in engineering, biotechnology, agriculture, and renewable energy. Right now, though, the cost per gallon is significantly higher than fossil diesel. Most experts agree that algae biofuel needs technological improvements and larger facilities to become price competitive. To increase public awareness, some airlines have showcased test flights using algae-based jet fuel blends. Universities and government agencies also produce open access videos and educational materials about algae energy. These efforts can help people understand why next generation biofuels matter, though public awareness is still fairly low. Based on current data, algae biofuel is promising but needs additional progress in cost reduction, harvesting techniques, and reactor design. My recommendation is to invest more in improving algae strains and more effective bioreactors. If funding were not an obstacle, the ideal next step would be to build a national demonstration network of algae biorefineries powered by renewable energy partnered with wasteland treatment plants and industrial CO2 sources. In conclusion, algae biofuel offers a potentially sustainable pathway to cleaner energy. It isn't ready for full-scale commercial use yet, but research is growing rapidly. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helped explain why algae biofuel is such an important area of renewable energy development. These are my sources.